Welcome, NFL football fans. It's that time again. It is time for another edition of NFL Football Talk. This is an Inside Sports production. I'm your host, Charles E. Smith Jr., and we're all the way up to Week 8 of this NFL season. Still have 5 undefeated teams, although 2 of them are meeting this week, so we'll probably have only 4 left, or maybe 4 that are undefeated and 1 that's unbeaten if there's still a tie. But, all those mathematical things. But let's go ahead and get right into it. Another star player was injured last week. Another star player will be coming back this week, and another one in about another month. So I can't break all this stuff down by myself, so I only enlist the very, very best. So here he is from somewhere in an undisclosed location, but secure, in Southern California. The man many of you already follow on Twitter at Chris L Sports, none other than Chris Lardieri. Chris, what's happening out there, man?
Charles, great to be back. Thank you for a fantastic introduction. I can't believe we're already at Week 8. That said, apparently the new rage is to watch bad football from London on your handheld device, laptop, whatever the case is, because plenty of people did it, but I know you and I, it was too early for us, and we weren't 2 of them, but apparently it was a big hit, huh?
Yeah, and it was apparently too early for Buffalo as well, because it took them a long time to get going in that game before they wound up blowing it at the end. But, I think and you look at the football fans over there, or the American football fans or budding fans, it kind of reminds me of a friend of mine I know who watches the English Premier League soccer here. He had seen a match with, I think it was Liverpool. Yeah, Liverpool had come over here and played, and they looked fantastic. So he was a Liverpool fan. Until real English Premier League soccer fans got a hold of him and explained to him just how far down the totem pole Liverpool was. So now he still watches soccer, but now he's a fan of, I believe it's either Chelsea or Manchester United. So that may happen over there with the fans when they figure out what it is with the Jacksonville Jaguars. But the important thing is, if they become American football fans, then, goal accomplished for Goodell and the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. Although if Goodell has his way, if he can't get an 18-game season, he might move a team like Jacksonville to London, so then they'd really be forced to root for them. But who knows? Remains to be seen.
I don't get that whole 18-game season thing. And, the players are against it, and rightfully so. All it does, you look at all the injuries, and the last thing you want to do is add 2 more games into that. And also, just the whole money factor, because from what I'm told, I guess Yahoo put up $20 million to stream that game. So there you are, just another $20 million just dropped in the bucket. That's not enough. The extra $400 million they get from DirecTV for the Sunday ticket deal this year, that's not enough. It's, where does it end, man? Seriously, where does it end?
It doesn't. Add to that ESPN, which basically was bidding against itself a few years ago and paid a few $100 million over what they probably needed to, and now sadly, they've had a fairly sizable layoff over there in Bristol because they're paying so much for professional sports, including the NFL. But as long as the hand is out, I guess it'll get filled, huh?
Yeah, I guess so. So, hey, you keep on going to the well until it's empty, just like they did with the sardines in Monterey, and then one day they just went out there and there was just no more sardines, just gone after these bumper crops, year after year after year, and then just done. So we'll see.
Yeah, pretty soon there'll be no water left either, right?
Exactly. So, another player went down this week, Arian Foster, the star running back for the Houston Texans, the oft-injured star running back, but he's down with an Achilles non-contact injury, so his days in Houston may be numbered. His career may be about done as well. But then on the good side of things, Des Bryant, maybe he was going to play last week. He didn't come back, but expected to play this week against Seattle. Not that it's going to make a difference. It'll be a 5th straight loss for Dallas. But most importantly, everybody in New York, I know Eli Manning is happy about it. We heard it from Tom Coughlin. We know he is ecstatic.
He's done really what appears to be an outstanding job of preparing himself. He is, mentally very upbeat. His attitude is outstanding. He's anxious to go to play right now, to be honest with you. But they're going to go relatively slow on that. He's told me that he's worked against bags. He's delivered blows on a board and done all of those things. So he's been working, and we'll just see how fast this comes along. There's no intention right now of him playing Sunday.
there's only one thing left now. Mr. Lardieri, how do you feel about the impending return of JPP, Jason Pierre-Paul? 10 fingers, 8.5, 8 3/4 finger, I think he has now. But Tom Coughlin's excited about it. What do you think, though, man? JPP coming back to your New York Giants, probably in about 3 or 4 more games.
Yeah, on the one hand, I'm happy because the Giants' defensive line is so depleted and really in need of a pass rush that we'll take anything we can get. I don't know how effective it will be. That remains to be seen. But I think a one-armed, one-handed, whatever the case is, JPP is better than what they've got now, like backup fullbacks rushing the quarterback. Number 2, I still think he's a bozo for what he did, and he deserves all the criticism he should get. I was talking about it with a coworker today, and to me it sounds like the Giants, even though he hadn't signed his tender, had some sort of a agreement in place in principle or whatever previously. They just wanted to wait to see how the hand progressed. I, in my infinite wisdom, told said coworker that they probably had a handshake agreement in place. I can assure you I did not mean that, pun intended, without pun intended. I shouldn't be making bad hand jokes, but from a business sense, and I give the Giants credit, they honored it, but at the same time, they need this guy. So funny how something that was catastrophic and could have ended up being a hot mess ended up working out for both sides. So good to be back. Number 3, I'm going to take a unique angle on this. How is it that JPP blows his hand off, and he will probably be back on the field earlier than Victor Cruz with his pulls, sprains, whatever it is? I mean, I've never seen a guy. And look, Coughlin ripped Odell Beckham Jr. last year when he couldn't get on the field and missed a number of games with a hammy. Why is Victor Cruz suddenly the Teflon Don into Meadowlands? I don't get it.
Yeah, well, you got to wonder if maybe Cruz tried to come back a little bit too soon from the injury, wound up with a compensation injury, and that could be the problem. But he's got to be able to cut and slash and get open. So, yeah, it's a pretty sad situation there with Cruz. But I'll tell you what, if going down the stretch, and the Giants right now in sole possession of first place in the NFC East, if they hang on, you're going to be getting some pretty fresh players back, because down the stretch you're going to have Victor Cruz, if he comes back through the last few games of the season, and JPP coming back. You're going to have a couple guys there, key players, who will not have had a lot of wear and tear on the bodies this year. So it could work out pretty well, and JPP could wind up being kind of like a Charles Haley situation, where you come in for the last 4 games of the season and the playoffs and walk away with a ring. I don't know which finger he's going to put it on, but he's going to walk away with a ring.
Oh, no. We had one bad hand joke, Charles. We can't go there again. But anyway, yeah, I agree. They need him. Now, that said, look at the Giants' schedule from this cream puff portion of it that's coming up against the Saints and the Buccaneers. It gradually starts to get more difficult. They play the Pats, and then in the month of December, they play the Jets, they play the Panthers, they play the Eagles. It's going to get very interesting. So we shall see. They're not going to be facing a lot more Matt Castles.
Yeah, that's true. And, well, speaking of Matt Castle, the Dallas Cowboys lost 4th straight. They're going to play Seattle this week, probably lose a 5th straight. But Greg Hardy going nuts on the sidelines there in last week's game. And that was a game where, curiously, that was one of the games we picked. And you kind of thought that the Dallas Cowboys were going to take your Giants down. But it didn't happen there. So what is it like to? I know you as a journalist, you pick from your head, not your heart. But how'd you feel about that game?
On the one hand, I was glad the Giants won. Now, in my defense, I did it on somewhat of a hedge, thinking Dez was going to make some remarkable comeback that the Cowboys are hiding from us. So in my defense, Dez didn't play. Now, that said, Giants are lucky to win that game. It's a 20-20 game in the 4th quarter. Castle played, I don't know, he didn't even play an average game. He played, to be fair, poor. 3 interceptions, killing a lot of drives. It came down to Dwayne Harris, kick return, former Cowboy, finally paying dividends via the free agent market to put the game out of reach. Eli wasn't very effective, and while it was a win, it was a very ugly one. And they're in sole possession of first place in a bad division, but the Redskins are starting to come around, and I still don't count the Eagles out. So. Look, I'll always take a win over Dallas. I'll always admit when I'm wrong, but not very impressive.
Well, you say that's a bad division, but I'm going to tell you, as long as there is the AFC South, which is the Indianapolis Colts, even though they're spiraling downward, at an incredible rate right now. They're 3-4, and they're probably going to lose again this week, I think. But there's a division. It seems like it goes to division and it sparks a debate. It was the NFC South most recently. They said, okay, so should you still get a home game if you win your division? Then before that, it was the NFC West. And now it's going to be the AFC South, because really, I look at that division with Indianapolis, with Houston, with Tennessee and Jacksonville. I don't know how many wins the Colts will wind up with, but I'd venture to say 6-10 would take that division.
Yeah, that's really sad. And as bad as the Colts are, it'd really be remarkable that if they did go 6-10 and win that division, because the division's so poor. It's so devoid of quarterback talent. I mean, nothing against Mariota. He's a rookie. But
right.
The quarterback play in Jacksonville and Houston leaves tons to be desired. So you would think they could at least go 8-8 and get in, which I originally thought could happen. But Chuck Pagano's days might be numbered. They may even need to make a coaching change to lay the spark under this team. And now you've got Irsay and Gregson, the general manager, arguing in the locker room after
right.
the game. This could be the new Cowboys or the new Raiders in Indy.
Well, except for those Cowboys. If you're speaking of the Cowboys I'm thinking of, which is the Cowboys of the 90s, they had a little bit of, bling-bling to go along with all that. And the Raiders way back in the day also were on top with the whole just win, baby. But, yeah, bad situation there. And I just thought Chuck Pagano might be gone this week, honestly, after they tanked that game this week, and that was after losing the week before. But if they drop the game to Carolina and drop to 3-5 on the season, it's how far do you go, and what would make you think with the present leadership that even if they get into the playoffs, we know they will, but how far are they going to go?
Yeah, not very far when you consider their far better divisions, where a wild card team could get in, and even on the road in Indy, really whack them. So, I'm starting to wonder if maybe the new model in the NFL is to get rid of your ineffective coach and bring in some sort of motivator, leader, whatever Dan Campbell is now in Miami, to really shake things up. And the good thing is the Colts aren't playing in London this weekend, so I previously thought that was the key to losing your job. Go over there with a bad team and come back home without a job. But, it's not looking good. The Panthers, another surprising undefeated team,
right,
can be a tall task on Monday night.
Yeah, that's true. And, hey, what about those Dolphins? We haven't talked about them in a while. That's my squad. Everybody knows. But Dan Campbell has lit a fire under them. And I'll tell you, not many head coaches really scare me, no matter what they do. But, man, would you, to meet Dan Campbell in a dark alley, I think would just be terrifying. And when I look at all 32 head coaches, if you had an old-fashioned WWF battle royal, is there any doubt Dan Campbell would be the last guy left standing?
Absolutely not. He's also young, in good shape, and he learned under the tutelage of the likes of Bill Parcells. So keep the folding chairs and tables away from him. He's liable to grab them and just hit you with it in a moment's notice. But still, apparently, you and I talked about this even before the season. Joe Philbin, nice guy, not the most inspiring guy, but apparently the Dolphins really needed some tough love. And now we've got an interesting Thursday night matchup in New England.
All right, so let's go ahead and get into we'll get into the picks of the week. Now, last week we both went 3-2. The only games we disagreed on, I had the Jets pulling the upset over the Patriots. That didn't happen. You had the Cowboys against the Giants. We had differed on that game. But so for the season, I sit at 18-17. You sit at 19-16. So pretty close as we go in to pick these next 5 games for this week. So before we do that, though, do you have any nuggets of wisdom for everybody?
Yeah, I actually do. My old friend and virtual punching bag, Roger Goodell. Being the journalist that I am, not only do I pick the Cowboys to beat my beloved Giants just due to strict objectivity, I heard that Goodell was going to be on ESPN Radio's Mike and Mike show this week, so I kind of took a spoonful of proverbial sugar and listened to it, and it was a lot of the usual nonsense, scripted softballs, etc. And it just occurred to me that Mike and Mike have become to Roger Goodell what Ahmad Rashad of NBC Sports back in the day was to Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys, when this guy talks, I mean, it's more scripted than a Republican presidential debate, Charles. And They asked him about Deflategate, and he had some sort of like tough response queued up that was totally scripted, of course. They asked him a few other things. If you listen to Roger Goodell, everything's perfect and great, and you've got people in Asia and South America streaming a bad Bills-Jacksonville game. But yeah, I really shouldn't have done it, but I did for the good of the show to report back to you, Charles, that Roger Goodell is alive and well. He has a lot of nothing to say. He's really wants a team in L.A., and he's going to have a big mess on his hands. And related to that, I've heard they sent their representative, Eric Grubman, to St. Louis last night and San Diego tonight to meet with the community. That's a dog and pony show. But really, I think this whole thing could get out of hand. San Diego is talking about filing for relocation and who's meeting what criteria of the bylaws. Right. I don't know. You and I lived here long enough. We'll believe it when that shovel goes into the ground. But I think that's going to be Goodell's next headache because he's so blind to the fact that he wants a team in L.A. and now he's got 3 teams vying for it with varying proposals. And part of my ticking off loyal football fan bases. So who knows what will happen? But I think that's the next thing to watch for on the horizon.
Yeah, there we go. And it would be strange to see if the Chargers and the Raiders both wound up sharing a stadium. I mean, division rivals sharing the same stadium. Would that work out? And then you got the Rams. Would it be the first stadium to house 3 teams? Is that possible?
Yeah, it would. And I don't think that they even want any business doing that. Part of me thinks 2 would be the max. But,
right.
The Raiders and Chargers shared a stadium on Sunday in San Diego, and apparently the Raiders could relocate there because that was like an Oakland home game.
That's what I heard too, and the Chargers are just going into a free fall now at 2-5, and in fact, that's the first game we're going to pick. The 2-5 Chargers at another free falling team, which is the Baltimore Ravens. But the Baltimore Ravens, they're 1-6, but those 6 losses have come by a combined total of just 30 points. So that's really kind of got to be kind of disheartening for them. So I'll go ahead and pick this one. I think the Chargers in Baltimore. I look at the kind of soft secondary of the Baltimore Ravens. I look at how Rivers likes to throw the ball around, and I think if the Chargers go in there, throw caution to the wind, they can get this win over Baltimore. I'm going to go with the Chargers to barely keep any hopes of playoffs alive, and on the road in Baltimore to take down the Ravens. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd love to agree with you, but I can't. I was looking at the Monday night game between Baltimore and Arizona, and the Cardinals let the Ravens back into that game. Flacco kind of panicked on a blitz and threw an interception in the end zone late, but they were in the game. I mean, despite all the injuries they've had and issues and lack of depth at wide receiver, they're still playing. They're still in games. They're not throwing in the towel. And another interesting thing, the Ravens may have played more games west of the Mississippi than the Chargers have this year. Every week I turn them on, it seems like they've got a game in the Mountain or Pacific time zone. So the fact that they go back home, the fact that I think the Chargers are completely and utterly one-dimensional team, and Phillip Rivers may very well throw for 6,000 yards because they run for about 10 each week. So I'll go with Flacco and the Ravens. This is a real tough one to pick. Basically, whoever loses this game, I think the free fall continues and their season is pretty much over. So I'll go with the home team. And then I also think that if the Chargers do lose, you've got a fan base that may bail on this team, and they may be calling for Mike McCoy's head too. So see what happens, but it could get ugly there.
Well, what do the Chargers fans say? And they want to not get to the Super Bowl, but with a better record, or what? It's anyways. Let me not bag on the Chargers. I don't want to kick them while they're down and everything, but that just brings up a point we didn't talk about, was that Arizona game and the way that the poor clock management at the end, and that's something I just don't get, is it's not like it's a transitional sport like the NHL or NBA where things just keep on going and going. Each time a play is done, you get to reset on changes of possession. You have a minute to look at the scoreboard, look at the clock. Are we behind? Are we ahead? Is the clock our friend or our enemy? And you can call plays accordingly. How do these guys get messed up with running backs when you're ahead and the clock is winding down, running backs running out of bounds, quarterbacks dropping back and, getting called for intentional grounding, things like that? I don't understand how this happens.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, I've got a couple ideas on this. First of all, at least with the quarterbacks, I think with them having the radio in the helmet, and the wristbands and with all the plays and the scripted, it's almost like these guys have no common sense or no battle testing. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
And they've just, everything is done for them, that they just react and don't even have to think. That's one theory. Number two, you just got some bad coaches, and you know, Andy Reid's notorious for this. They can't manage a clock, and frankly, maybe they need to hire some sort of clock babysitter or clock manager to tell them what's going on, because I don't know if guys got too much on their plate, can't multitask, but I agree with you. And frankly, the cynical part of me wants to think maybe these coaches just don't practice enough, like a Chuck Pagano trick play. I'm not quite sure, but some of these teams still look like they're in training camp mode with the clock management.
Yeah, and you just think that when they go to the huddle, someone would be in the huddle, you know, just saying, all right, we got to work the clock. We got to work the clock, boys. Something like that. But I guess not. I don't know. I've never been in a pro huddle, so I don't know what goes on there. So let's go ahead and get to the next game. New York Giants, big winners last week, 4-3. They sit atop the NFC East division, and they're going to be in New Orleans. New Orleans surprisingly strong, though, winning a couple of games no one thought they would win. They're now at 3-4, and they can get back into the fringes of the playoff hunt. How do you see this one? Your beloved Giants in New Orleans to take on the Saints.
You know, in the financial services industry, some people pick stocks just basically looking at a chart and plotting price over time are called chartists, and I'm gonna play chartists with the Giants, and I timed them wrong last week. They're up one week, they're down another. It looks like it's time for it to be a down week. On top of that, I'll throw some football common sense in there and say that Drew Brees is coming around again. Not that impressed with the Giants' defense yet again, even against the weak Matt Castle. And I think ultimately Drew Brees will feast on this Giants defense, who has no pass rush and a weak secondary, even though Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie had a nice interception return against Castle. But Drew Brees isn't going to put it in his chest on Sunday. I think it'll be a close game. I know Eli and Odell Beckham Jr. are having a homecoming coming back to New Orleans, but for some reason it tells me it's a game the Giants should win and they won't, so I'll go Saints.
And I've studied the Giants under Eli as well, and seen the rise and fall and the ups and downs, the highs and lows, and the despair and the elation and everything. I was thinking there's certain points where the Giants do kind of get things going, and I think this week will be one of those weeks here. I take the Giants to go ahead and go in there, beat the Saints, because I think the Saints are playing a little bit over their heads. They are. They caught a couple of caught Atlanta, which Atlanta's not quite ready for prime time, and beat them a couple of weeks ago. Then they beat a flailing, free-falling Indy team last week. But I think the Giants are going to go in there. They're at least structured. They go in there. They take care of business. Giants get to 5-3 and remain alone atop the NFC East.
If anything, Charles, I remain objective. Whether my picks are right or wrong, I will always maintain my objectivity.
All right. Now, here we go. Undefeated Cincinnati Bengals in Pittsburgh. Big division rival matchup. The Steelers at 4-3. And I guess it's about 50-50 as to whether or not Big Ben is going to play this week. The Steelers do need him back. So it's really kind of hard to put this one on the board here. I think, though, that when you look at it, Cincinnati, just at this point of the season, they are a better team than Pittsburgh. I'm going to say that, even though Pittsburgh has been trending upwards before last week's fall against KC. But I'm going to go ahead with Cincy in this game and say that, they keep it going. They get to 7-0 for the first time in franchise history.
I'm going to have to agree with you on this one. Even if Ben plays, I don't think he's going to be 100%.
Right.
Frankly, I think right now the Bengals are a better team on both sides of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll save the loquaciousness and agree with you on Cincinnati.
Loquaciousness or loquaciosity?
Oh, jeez. I don't know. I'm not good with my adjectives, Charles, as you could tell, but I do like the word loquacious, as you can see.
As do I. I think I knew a brother in the hood who was named Loquacious. But anyways, let's go ahead and move on. Next up, Battle of Undefeateds. I believe this is the Sunday night game. In fact, the Green Bay Packers in Denver to take on the undefeated 6-0 Denver Broncos. No one knows how Denver's been doing it. They've just been doing it. Now you could say, yes, they're doing it with defense, but goodness. I mean, Peyton Manning, I think the lowest rated quarterback in the league right now. What's he got? 7 TD passes and 10 interceptions on the season. But Green Bay Packers going in there, are they the one who finally go in there and prove the emperor has no clothes?
I think so, and a couple reasons. I'll take Aaron Rodgers over Peyton Manning any day of the week, even in Denver. And I also think that the Packers' defense is doing just enough, and they can force a few more Peyton turnovers. They'll capitalize on it. And I think even on the offensive side of the ball, I think the Packers are a more well-rounded team, and I think it'll be a good game. I'm looking forward to it. NBC's definitely got to be thrilled to have two undefeated teams playing on the 1st of November, so I'm sure their ratings will be through the roof, and they'll probably trounce the World Series, but Packers it is for me.
Oh, yeah, no disagreement there. I got the Packers, and, again, just like picking Cincy over Pittsburgh, I think the Packers are a more complete team on both sides of the ball, and, this should be a good game, but I think on the other side, potentially it could get ugly as well. And the Packers might roll them by 15 or 20 points or so. But let's go ahead on the last one, the Monday night game. Indianapolis Colts in Carolina to face the undefeated Carolina Panthers. The Colts at 3-4, and were a trendy Super Bowl pick before the season started. But could they possibly get things going this week and win this game against Carolina? I would say if I were to take out the 8-ball, the magic 8-ball, it would say outlook not so good. So I'm going to go ahead and say Carolina here in this game. And they send Indy to 3-5, which will still be good enough for first place in their division.
Truly ponderous, Charles. I'm going to agree with you. I really like the way the Panthers are playing, and that defense against Andrew Luck and no offensive line really would scare me as a Colts backer. And, kind of flying a little bit under the radar is the way Cam Newton's playing. I mean, this guy's got really no depth at wide receiver. He's got Greg Olsen, a nice tight end, and he's still managing to do it every week. And he's maturing, and he's not just looking to run immediately. And this guy I know Kelvin Benjamin got out for the year, but even if they had another receiver to complement him, I think they down the road potentially could be a dangerous team in the NFC. And even without those receivers, with that defense, I mean, it's a team to be reckoned with in the playoffs. They went into Seattle and beat the Seahawks, and I think they'll handle the Colts.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's probably time to start seriously putting Cam Newton in the MVP conversation. And speaking of Seattle, that's another game we did not pick, but Dallas at Seattle, we would both think Seattle was going to win that. If so, Seattle, after all is said and done, they'd be 4-4, which is the same place they were last year. At this point of the season, the midway point, they were 4-4. We all know how that ended. Well, not the play on the goal line, but it ended with them in the Super Bowl. That's what I'm trying to say. So, here's the picks of the week.
And that makes those upcoming Cardinals-Seahawks matchups even more intriguing down the stretch.
Aren't they going to be fantastic? Yeah, I love it. I love the way the schedule is put together. So, yeah, they still face each other twice. Haven't played yet this year. Fantastic. So what do you think before we sign off here, Mr. Lardieri? Final quote for us?
Yeah, I mean, we now know, like we hit on, we're going to have one less undefeated team in the league, and I think it's the most undefeated teams this late in the season. Yeah. But I got to tell you, as good as these undefeated teams are, none of them, save for maybe the Patriots and the Packers, really stand out to me as teams where like, we could see them in Santa Clara come the first weekend in February. So I think there are some really good teams, but over the next few weeks you'll see things shake out, and I do not think we'll have a repeat of the 72 Dolphins and the team running the table. Even as good as the Patriots are, you saw how vulnerable they were last week against the Jets, and they could be had too. So don't deceive yourself. They're good teams, but these are not great teams without a loss right now.
All right, there we go. The ever-eloquent Mr. Lardieri. And remember, you can follow him on Twitter at Chris L. Sports. Follow me on Twitter at The Inside Sports. So for Mr. Lardieri, I'm Charles E. Smith, Jr. This is NFL Football Talk. Thanks for watching. We'll see everybody next week.